r/ask Reddit. What's the worst thing you've ever tasted? Once I popped some electrolyte mineral pills in my mouth and started chomping away on my way to the gym. I thought I had grabbed my almonds. They began foaming and tasted extremely bitter and sour at the same time. I thought I was getting poisoned. Also once tried an olive straight off a tree. Also tasted like poison. Don't recommend. Okay, first paragraph cracked me TF up. I can imagine the brief moment of panic you had when you thought you were being poisoned, LMAO. Second paragraph is a till. I recently bought an olive tree and I've wanted this. So damn, now I know that I'll have to do extra shit to them when the tree eventually produces them. LOL. Brussels sprout flavored Jones soda. From the holiday pack about 15 years ago. Dude, yes. My friends and I bought that pack and all took turns trying the sodas. We saved the Brussels sprout one for last and it's good we did because we all vomited. We were in my friend's kitchen and he went first and vomited in the sink. Then another guy went and ran out the back door and puked in a bush. Then I went and puked in the bush next to the other bush. It was quite a ride. A lightning bug. Firefly. I was running through the garden at dusk and one flew into my mouth. It was disgusting. Very chemical. This is so nostalgic to me. I used to catch them all the time as a kid in my aunt's amazing garden. And the smell left behind after letting them go was so distinct I could taste it. Just like you said. Super chemical. One time I chewed on a gelato. It had some kind of liquid inside that numbed my mouth and my throat and I thought I was gonna die. It was so bitter too. I used to take some antidepressant pill, and it just barely scraped one of my sharp canine teeth. And it tasted horrible, like my mouth was just dying or something for almost 30 minutes. Water and milk made it even worse. Use mustard. This clear liquid medicine I had to take as a kid when I was diagnosed with a polio-like disease called Coxsackie. The name is funny. I don't even remember the effects. But that medicine legit tasted like battery acid or something. Who TF decided to name a disease Coxsackie? Coxsackie disease. Named after the man who discovered it. Dr. Henry disease. A properly ripened persimmon, in my opinion, is really good. But one year around Christmas I got one that must have been underripe or something because it tasted good for 0.02 seconds before the texture turned into little sand and sucked every particle of moisture out of your mouth. Literally the worst thing ever. See, the trick is to get yourself a Fuio persimmon. Those guys are not astringent like the Tennessee persimmons. You can eat the Fuio when it's crisp like an apple. And it's so sweet. I'll eat pounds of them when they're in season. And I actually prefer them firmer. When I was super young, probably way too young to be going down to the lake near our house on my own, I came across this black thing on the ground. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it looked like a delicious chestnut like the ones my mom would bring home in huge bags to both snack on and feed squirrels with. So I did what any sensible pre-kindergartner would do, and took a bite. It was not a chestnut. To this day I can't imagine what it was, but it was the absolute worst tasting thing I've ever put in my mouth. I still remember crying as I was walking all the way back home. Sure, I'd been poisoned and was going to die. Edit. Chestnuts, not hazelnuts. A cheese ball at this church lady's house, one of my grandma's friends. It tasted like dirty socks that a cat had been playing with for months. But I have never laughed as hard as I did that day. I, stupidly, asked my then 11-year-old sister, who is on the spectrum and thus has problems modulating her voice, if she had had a cheese ball. She proceeds to effectively yell, "Yeah, it tasted like a butt's foot." The look of death we got from that old lady. Your sister is a goddamn poet. Girlfriend's tonsil stone. This is it. This is the one that did it for me. Last one I read before swiping to the next thread. You win. I'm done. When I was young, my grandparents on my dad's side spent every Christmas Eve at our house. It was great. Except my grandma's contribution to the dinner, which was an awful dish called tomato aspic. It is basically tomato juice jello, and is every bit as awful as it sounds. The whole family hated it, but my grandma couldn't cook, and did the best she could. I remember being 10, and tried sneaking some to my dog that would eat everything from socks to dog poop. He growled at me and bared his teeth. If a dog that eats poop and licks his own butthole tells you to get that crap away from him, you don't eat it either. Tomato juice jello. Okay, now I've seen it all. Aspics have been around since the Middle Ages. Tomato aspics have been a classic dish for hundreds of years. They fell out of favor in the US in the 1970s for the reason many recipes did. People started making them with really shitty ingredients to save time. Sounds like your grandma pours unflavored gelatin into V8 and calls it a day. Maybe she gives it a dollop of mayonnaise. I suspect that tastes as bad as it sounds. A real tomato aspic takes a couple of days to make. The gelatin shouldn't come from a powdered packet but from the natural collagen and stock made from roasted beef bones. The tomato shouldn't be from a can but from tomatoes stewed, skins and seeds removed. The creamy sauce on top can go in different directions, but the starting point should be some sort of egg emulsion, a garlic aioli, for example, or hollandaise. That's a very different dish. The taste is exquisite. One time I was in the very early stages of pregnancy. I had been taking fish oil supplements. I had morning sickness really bad during this pregnancy. I burped not long after taking this pill and the taste was horrible. Dead fish. It was so nasty I immediately threw up, catching it in my hands as I ran to the sink. You can fix the smell by eating dead bird paste. Not me, but I made spaghetti once a few months back in the early fall, and I guess after the initial plates, I left it to cool uncovered so I could put the leftovers away. So the next day my husband is enjoying some spaghetti for lunch when Crunchy bit into a stink bug that had landed in it. If you know how badly a stink bug smells, you can only imagine how bad it tastes. My husband was projectile vomiting within 5 minutes and it's been months and he won't let me make spaghetti anymore because it reminds him of it. I cannot fathom how bad that must have tasted. The man probably has PTSD every time he sees pasta now. I accidentally drank a dip spitkin instead of my beer at a party in college once. Distressed face vomiting. My dad did that, but it was my brother's cup. Dad thought someone had left a full Coke out on a side table. He yacked for an hour, and my brother was in deep shit. I would put my kid up for adoption if they caused me to have that experience. Bong water. The classic high school dare. One time I went into an apartment of a Texas lady, died in her bath. I was an EMT. I could taste her. Been there in the summer heat for 2-ish weeks. Flies everywhere. A Slim Shady. It was a drink I ordered from a bar in Singapore. A shot of warm bourbon poured into a warm half pint of Murphy's. The temperature in Singapore, as you can imagine, is something akin to being in a hot oven all day, all night, all year round. Even breathing is difficult. As a tourist you get hot and thirsty. I think that's the only drink in my life I just said duck it after one sip. I ordered it. I'll pay for it, but bring me a cold water to get that shit out of my mouth please. Goddamn. Sounds like you got duped. Should have asked for the real Slim Shady. Turmeric lemonade, today from Chipotle. Don't get me wrong, I love lemonade, and turmeric goes great in a lot of things, just not together. Also, prednisone, do not chew. Agree with the prednisone. Accidentally scraped one on my tooth when taking it and was sure that it was replaced with a cyanide pill. Those Quixel things. You make little art like a diamond pickaxe from Minecraft out of small colored cubes on a grid, then spray water on them so they stick together. Anyway, it said do not put in mouth. The first thing I did, and oh my god, it tasted like a lemon that had been addicted to heroin for the past 8 years. It was the worst taste ever. The disgusting beans from the Bean Boozled challenge. Seriously, how TF do they get those nasty ass flavors? Skittles had a zombie mix this year and they somehow managed to get the nasty flavor of death inside a pretty candy shell. Reminded me of Bean Boozled. Big difference is that I didn't know my Skittles were tainted and the complete surprise horrible taste made it even worse. My sister has pancreatic issues, so for Thanksgiving I made dairy-free mac and cheese. No cheese or butter, instead blended butternut squash, cauliflower, onion, and nutritional yeast. My sister loved the effort and was very appreciative, but also, rightfully, banned me from cooking dairy-free ever again. One time I was eating a bag of chips, I think they were Doritos, while driving late at night. It was dark so I couldn't really see what I was eating. Turns out in the bag there was a big concentrated clump of flavoring dust that formed somehow. I popped that whole sucker right in my mouth. Big mistake. You might think it would just taste like chip dust, but no, it tasted like dirt and pain. It's like there was so much condensed flavor that my brain had an integer overflow error. I nearly drove off the road. So if you ever find something like that at the bottom of a bag of chips, I strongly advise not trying anything more than a little nibble of it. A daddy long legs and his web. When I woke up at 5 AM hungover AF, he made a web and chilled over my water cup that had been out for a few days. It's been 15 years. I still look at the openings of my drinks before I drink them, even when I just opened it. I was eating a hard-boiled egg. I bit into the egg and my mouth was filled with what I can only describe as a mouthful of wet dirty pigeon. I looked down and found a chicken fetus. It had feathers and everything, and it was the only time I almost puked from food. I once ate a soft cheese that tasted like band-aids, plasters. Why do I know what that tastes like? I guess from pulling them off my finger with my teeth. I don't know, but that cheese was straight band-aids. Fresh papaya. It tastes like vomit, except with a more slimy texture, and you were actually looking forward to trying it, so it's such a mind duck. I still like the dried sweetened stuff though. When I was 5 I ate my mother's hair dye. It was the worst thing I ever tasted for 5 minutes, until I went to the kitchen and drank out of a pot of old, spent cooking oil for absolutely no reason at all. Once when I was like 14 or so I got some sort of stomach bug and I was throwing up for 24 hours. I emptied my stomach totally and was still retching. About the third or fourth trip on an empty stomach I vomited green bile. I'm still haunted by how disgusting that tasted. I used to install gutters. There was this one commercial building that already had gutters, but needed more downspouts. I cut into the bottom with a hole saw, and got mud and ice from inside the gutter in my mouth. It tasted strange, bad, and kind of nutty. Turns out, there was a decomposing magpie that I was also drilling into. TLDR, decomposing birds taste nutty. Black licorice, makes me gag. Liquid Tamiflu. Had to chase it with something and I still can't drink pink lemonade because of it. The cleaning paste they use on your teeth before UV bonding. Ate a French fry one time that tasted how an old man's breath smelled. I assume it was a worm or something. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.